Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast, Lost in the Ether. As usual, my name is Spence. Today, we are joined by my friends Cody, Eric, and Mike, all alphabetically ordered, so there's no preference of person here. But today's topic is we are going to be discussing one of our favorite games franchises, the Fallout franchise from Bethesda. And probably going to be a shorter podcast tonight. We all kind of have some things we have to take care of here. But we really just wanted to just go over things we like about the franchise, what we could improve about the franchise, and then any other miscellaneous topics we have about it. So without further ado, we will get started. Eric, how far have you actually played any Fallout game?
Pretty much the 176 is the one I played. I haven't really
Okay.
played. I played 4, but barely. I
I'm
like
sorry.
this isn't my topic. Like this stuff, I know very, very little
That
about
that
this franchise.
yeah, that's
So
just why I wanted to ask you really quick, just to see like what your actual bearing is, because I don't know. It's one of those things where like an outside perspective actually might be helpful on this, but if you don't have enough experience with the game to even know what we're talking about, then that's fine.
yeah. I just wanted to lay it down there that don't expect me to kind of, you know,
It's fine.
make too many things because this isn't my area.
Well, actually, if anything, we can actually talk to you about things that might work for new players, but that might be a conversation for another video. Now that I'm thinking about it, but anyways, just to get the conversation rolling. So Fallout has kind of always been one of my favorite franchises, not because I always played it, but because I always liked the idea of Fallout. You know, alternate version of the world, alternate version of America, and the Cold War situation, which we are still in, that people ignore, but it's not as
Prominent?
fantastical as it is in Fallout. Well, just like, we're this close to going to war with China right now, and no one's talking about it, whereas in the Fallout universe, everybody was talking about it.
That's crazy. I didn't think that we were supposed to go into war with China
Germany
recently. I
has
had
sent their warships. When Germany decides to use its military, a nation that has been so non aggressive for the last 80 years almost, you know there's a situation going down
wait a
there.
second. Wait a second. Is this because of all the people that are rebelling in Hong Kong and in China
No,
as
it
a
has
whole?
more to do with China threatening Taiwan.
Oh, wow. I did not know about this. Well, guys, we're about to start a Fallout here in real life, so stay tuned. Get your shelters ready.
It's I mean, not to divert from our actual topic, but the gist of it is that the due date for China reincorporating Taiwan by its own schedule is coming up, and Taiwan does not want to rejoin China, obviously. So the only way
Yeah.
China can do what it wants to do is invade Taiwan. And with America's positioning in the world, especially after Afghanistan being really, really weak, China thinks it has an opportunity to do something. And, well, we'll see what happens, because Taiwan is a very, contrary to what people think, Taiwan is actually one of the most valuable countries in the free world.
Oh, absolutely. It's a beautiful country at that.
Well, it's just also like people do realize half of all computer chips and that kind of industry comes from Taiwan. So if China takes it over, they have a monopoly over all of technology essentially.
Oh yeah, see that the world isn't going to let that happen. But I do have to say, I'm going to laugh my ass off if in 2077 bombs start to fall. I'm going to be like, listen, guys,
If you're alive by then.
Bethesda and yeah, Bethesda and Obsidian called it. We are game over.
Actually, it was the studio before them, but yes, I know where you're getting at.
True, true,
Because
true. Good point. Good point.
But anyways, to get back to our main topic. So what I liked about Fallout is this whole idea of sort of this mixture of futuristic and retro aesthetics. So like I think
Absolutely.
like my favorite example of this is actually like the Mr. Handy robot, which is obviously something
Yes.
that we're still trying to create today, and sort of we're getting close to it. But it's this weird combination of like awesome futuristic tech, but like looks like it was made in your back garage kind of style. And it's just about that aesthetic that I really like about the franchise overall, which is consistent throughout most of the games. And even though Fallout 4 sort of had a weird transition of an art style, it still worked really well. I think they just added a little bit too much polish to things, if that makes sense. You know, like they made the main robots a little bit too good, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
That does make sense.
they were supposed to have more of the World of Tomorrow kind of look, not. I can't even think of the reference point for the robots, but they were less that.
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It was more of what I would say 70s or 80s style robots. Aesthetic, futuristic, bubbly kind of look that you'd get in the 60s when they were thinking of the future and flying cars.
Agreed. I do love that retro aspect, how, you know, they were in that thinking of the future, and Fallout, you know, made that future happen. I can't think of a better flying car than like an old Ford, you know, in the 50s. I mean, that just seems like the coolest thing to me. Or even some of the Volkswagens or the other cars that we've seen in Fallout. I mean, those are just, for me, those are so cool. I When I go to like old car shows, you know, and I see those cars, those are the cars I want to see flying around. I don't know why. I
Well,
just, the
it's like
Tesla look
classic
and
Americana.
futuristic.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
there you go.
because the thing is that I think what American society is actually might be realizing here sooner or later is that, you know, there was something that was distinctly American about that type of car style and just that aesthetic of the 60s and early 70s in general that was really just more of like there was nowhere else in the world that this was happening. This was American culture. All right. All right, and the thing about it is, it didn't have anything to do with like, it was more of a history and a nation than it was any sort of like a people group, which is why like in Fallout you can get away with a whole bunch of random people doing random things because it's really just more of the sort of what's the best way of saying it? Americanan is really just the only way I can describe this. Is like only this melting pot could have had this kind of a culture. So to see
Absolutely.
that sort of fictionalized and put to an extreme in the Fallout universe is something that I do appreciate. So it's like you have, I think they should have more jazz in Fallout because that makes far more sense for this
Agreed.
aesthetic than it does, you know,
Agreed.
classic like orchestral rock music
Now,
with
I do
choirs
think
and, you know, acapellas. Like, no. It's like, where's the jazz? Jazz was a
we did
huge
need
part of this
jazz.
time period. And to have that not show up as often as it should really was concerning to me.
But they did a great job with bringing in the 20s and 30s bands like the Ink Spots, because the
Yes.
Ink Spots, I mean, that was perfect. Like, I don't want to set the world on fire. I just want to start a flame in your heart. Like, come on, that was beautiful. But I definitely agree with you on the fact that, yes, more jazz, it just, even a little bit of jazz would have been
Well,
beautiful
they
for
sort of
that.
had that in they have always sort of had a little bit of jazz and all this kind of stuff. But like think about this. They have more western as kind of music or country music and Fallout than you have
Yeah,
actual
I'll
like
try.
jazz
Turn out wrong.
artists with the trumpets and the saxophones and all that kind of stuff. And just like that was a huge part of 50s culture, which is what this is sort of based off of. And I'm thinking to myself like where are those guys? Where's the huge instrumentals that were a part of this? You had a little bit of that in Fallout 4 with the whole third rail kind of deal with that singer, whatever her
True.
name was. I can't remember right now.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
You
Oh man,
Emma Jean was her name, something like that.
I think something like that. she did a great job.
But like that was the closest we had to jazz in it. It wasn't even like, you know, really like rocking jazz, like the precursor to what modern day rock was. It wasn't like the awesome drum solos and the awesome trumpet solos. It was just the singer and the casual night aesthetic, which is nice and I liked it, but it's just like I wanted more from that. Like I want to be jamming when I'm jamming terminals, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's something I would have, at least with the franchise, I would be looking to improve. Because, like, think about this. We have freaking John Denver songs from 76 before we have, like, anything else. Like, they've had the same soundtrack for a few games now.
Hmm.
But anyways, that's my little tirade. Because, like, it bothers me because I like the music aspect of any game, but in generally Fallout because it's such a nice throwback.
Agreed. It is a very good throwback. I think that having jazz, like you said, is really what I could add to the music aspect of it. But something I also would have loved to see, um, quite honestly, is more, not just more jazz, but maybe just some more instrumentals. Because something I like is I get a little annoyed hearing the same songs over and over when I listen to like Diamond City Radio, for example. So I'll throw on the classical radio, which kind of goes well with your character, you know, killing everyone and still being seen as a hero. It's kind of like a psychopathic sort of twist on it. You know, put on the classical music,
Well,
turn
that's
into
because you're an
Christian Bale,
Institute guy, so...
and do the listen. I sided with my family over all else. Does it make me a good person? No,
No.
but it makes me a great dad.
Okay. No, like, because, and yeah, that's sort of where I'm getting at. It's just like we need. I'm okay with music variety, especially when it's even different eras of music in the game. Because like the games take place in 2077, so like there's room for other kinds of music to develop. Maybe not drastically, because like the transistor wasn't invented in the Fallout universe until like towards the 2000s or the 90s time frame. Just judging from
Well,
what I've looked into the lore on that, that seems to be the more realistic way of putting the timeline on it. But even
Yeah.
still, like, you know, I don't mind rock, but the culture that Fallout is proposing is this era. All right, it's Nat King Cole,
great.
it's Clifford Brown, it's Johnny
Yes,
Hodges, it's Frank Sinatra is not even in Fallout. In Boston.
I know he should have been,
So
but
like I understand copyright and all that kind of stuff, but like you can't invent an equivalent here. You can't hire a singer to do this. You did it for John Denver in 76.
right. And you know, something that was always kind of weird to me. I know that they were going for a certain vibe, um, in the Institute. But what was odd to me is that there was no music inside the Institute, which really threw me off in the sense of you would have thought maybe, you know, if they didn't even take on the old music, they would have something of their own. And I would have loved to have walked into the Institute and had some sort of either futuristic electronic music, you know, calm electronic music playing. Because of course you do have the bit of music in the background when you enter the Institute. But as a whole, it's kind of eerie. And maybe that was the vibe they were going for, was to keep it eerie. It's kind of eerie not having any music down there or radios to turn on.
I would say
So
like Beethoven or something like the classical music, because they always put that as like that's how you get babies to be smart, is play classical music and stuff like that. But
there
like
you
a
go.
scientific institute playing the classical music over the radio, and it's just like the quiet enough that you wouldn't notice it unless you're actually paying attention to it. Kind of.
Yeah, or maybe even specific, if not all the synths were able to possibly play this music to either sync together or to cause some sort of calmness with other synths or connect in some way. It would have been really cool to have them, because synths talk a lot like people. But what I was, hoping for was that there would be some sort of break where they could just completely go robotic with their voices and, possibly either play music or even put off some sort of code besides the specific ones that hunt down rogue synths.
Well, it's that kind of, I mean, yes, that might be a good idea, but I think that kind of goes against the theme that they were going for, which was that the Generation 3 synths were actually just people. Because
Oh, I see.
because the Generation 2
Yeah.
synths, that would have been, like, I'm not dissuading what you just said, but I'm just saying, like, Generation 2 synths, that would be, like, the actual robots where you could have something like that. But the Generation 3 synths, what they were going for was, they were just people. That's why the railroad actually had one good point about it, is that these creatures or these beings that we created, they're exactly like us. They just have a few differences with their biology and with their origin. But other than that, they think like us, they act like us, they are us essentially. Like you shoot a synth, it dies like a normal person. So that's sort of what Bethesda was going for with that. But definitely with the Generation 2 synths and Generation 1 synths, that sort of, you could have had that sort of eerie, methodic undertone with the classical music with it. But I'm not sure. Actually, yeah, I think that actually would work even in the overworld of things, because like you could hear the synths coming. So maybe that would even add a different kind of sinister aspect to them as well.
Right, like the
Well,
music starts playing and then you know that like something is coming. But I really do hate how they just kind of threw out the Generation 2 synths because I thought they were really cool looking. Anyway, Mike was about to say something.
I was gonna say, like, even if like those little moments, like when you have the high sneak skill and you catch small conversations and stuff with NPCs or like raiders and stuff, having just the sense playing classical music as they patrol areas, but then the music just stops when they register you're there.
Yeah.
Like somebody shutting off the radio and pulling their gun out,
Yeah.
kind of aspect.
That would have been super eerie, quite honestly.
Yeah. So that I think that would be like the good compromise on that. But, and that's just with music though. There's other things about what Fallout 4, because Fallout 4 honestly was the weakest of the Fallout franchises. I think they focused more on the actual gameplay of the sequel than anything as far as the story goes, because honestly, I could have written a better Fallout 4 storyline than this, but that's just me.
One of the things I noticed, I think, hindered the storyline so much because they had to voice every single line your character was going to say. Instead of being able to just put in lines,
Yeah,
they had to voice
definitely a
everything
mistake.
that your character said, which kind of more in the line railroaded your playthrough, because there was only, you still had your lines, but they had to have somebody take care of each and every one of those lines. So that's just one extra person, one extra line for every single interaction your character runs into. So it kind of puts you more into, these are the specific lines you can go, because you also lost any emotion that you would feel when you said something, because you didn't have your text written out in front of you. You actually got like one or two word prompts, and the line could have went completely different. But
well, you're right
them
about the line prompts on that. They definitely should have just typed out what you were going to say. But the voice, some people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I actually don't think the voiced protagonist is a bad idea. My problem with the voiced protagonist was how it was implemented in the game. So like you said, the text to speech aspect of it, you just had the sarcastic options. Like, no, give me the sarcastic option. Tell me what I'm saying. So there's definitely room for improvement on that. And there's actually a mod that fixes that to some extent.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's not the voice protagonist that I feel like has the problem. It's the fact that they gave so few options than any other
Well,
Fallout game before with dialogue. It's not, the voice is almost irrelevant if you don't have options anyway.
I wasn't saying that the voice was a bad thing. I'm saying that that was more of the reason why we ended up getting more of a railroaded, watered down storyline, is because they had to put more focus on, like you said, the game, not more of the action in the game, more of the environment, and more onto the focus of the personality your character, each the male or the female, was giving in the environment, as opposed to you making your mark in the wasteland.
I do have a
Um,
question not pertain. Go ahead.
no, go for it, Cody.
Not pertaining to this. When you guys say playthrough, like a game playthrough, would you put playthrough together or would it be spaced?
Technically, it would be spaced or have a dash.
Yeah, the
It's not a
hyphen between the
compound
two
word
words.
yet. It's not like walkthrough.
Yeah.
It's they're two separate words that if you're going to combine it, need a dash or you put the space.
I'll just use walkthrough because that actually sounds much better. Thank you.
Okay. Glad we could help.
I want to play some Fallout 3 while I'm doing the stream with you guys, just because that always gives me more things to talk about when it comes to Fallout as well.
Didn't Cody have to go study?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do.
Yeah,
But
because that's why we're kind of doing this really quick so you can get back to it. But anyways, Cody, what else would you want to improve about Fallout?
Oh yeah, okay. So when it comes to improving about Fallout, I'm glad that you said that because I really don't need to start this playthrough. But when it comes to improving Fallout, some of the things I would love to see is, like you said, when I pick a dialogue option, I want it to be like in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3. The worst thing they did is not giving you your exact wording and incorporating that into a voice actor. Yes, I know it would have taken much more time, but I would have even been okay if they went, you know what, no voice actor, let's just put the dialogue at the bottom. Because for me, to have a voiceover, it kind of ruins the voice in my head that's trying to role play, especially when it's not a specific voice. If they were going to do what they did, they needed to have voice actors of different cultures and ethnicities so that you could be more diverse with it.
But this is
And
America.
Okay, all right. And but changing from the voice acting to the actual gameplay, something I would have really enjoyed seeing and wish they continue were traits. Well, actually, they did continue traits. Let me take that back. One thing I would have loved to see is the ability to do a passive playthrough. And in this passive playthrough, I would have loved to see not only being passive with people, but being able to tame any animal or creature in the wasteland, for whether you wanted to do a full passive playthrough or whether you just wanted to use that animal slash creature to intimidate other people so you didn't have to fight. Because to think of doing a passive playthrough, you could do it in a few different ways of being really nice to people, or you come off intimidating, sort of like what Outer Worlds incorporated. It would be cool to walk around the Fallout universe with a Deathclaw at your side, and people would be like, you know what? Come on through, buddy. I'm not going to give any resistance here. And that would give you the ability to do a passive playthrough in sort of an intimidating way, or a passive playthrough in sort of, uh, compassionate way. So if you didn't want to do it in an intimidating way, you could always just go through the passive playthrough and just have, high charisma and really just persuade everyone, and not even have to fight. And you could have your sneak up to get past certain things if you don't want to build taming creatures. But one thing that Mike mentioned about Skyrim, well, I know we're talking about Fallout, but it incorporates this, is it would have been really cool to tame any dragon from the beginning if you built that skill. for me, I like how had that idea, and I wish that we could take it even farther into Fallout and be able to tame a Deathclaw or a what's the name of that darn thing? A Rad
Rad Scorpion.
Scorpion. Yeah, that would have been so cool. And you don't even have to do a passive playthrough at that point. You could just stick the animal on them, and of course you wouldn't want to have that creature be invincible. They would die eventually, so you can just tame other creatures and use them at your disposal. Or even taming a Yaogwai would be super cool because those things are pretty tough. Or taming a Cazador, oof, that would be so much fun. You could have they could go as far as putting, the Cazador, uh, just as an example, because I can't think of what they would eat. But say you have a thing of honey and you have to carry that honey and feed that honey to the Cazador every so often, or it's going to turn on you. Same with the Deathclaw. You have to have a certain amount of, let's say, human remains on you to feed it in a certain time frame, or it's going to turn on you. For those creatures that are kind of vile. But for creatures that are lower, maybe you want to tame a radroach or something like that, you wouldn't necessarily need food for it. So that's something I'd like to see incorporated, a passive playthrough, taming of creatures and animals, and really just getting back to the core of what Fallout was. Being able to see your full dialogue and knowing that's exactly what your character is going to say. Spencer made a good point on that. I hated playing through Fallout 4 and picking sarcastic and not knowing if my sarcastic was going to make someone laugh or if it was going to turn them against me. That was the most disarming thing in the game. Is I want to know exactly what my character is going to say so I can do the playthrough. And the fact that they only had 2 voice actors really ruined it for me. I mean, I wish I did my first playthrough with the girl voice actor because, like Spencer said, she had more experience and she sounded so much better in any kind of dialogue. And especially when the male voice actor, when he would get upset or mad, it just sounded really kind of corny and weird to me. So if they're going to do voice actors, right? He was pretty soft. If they're going to do voice actors, it needs to be more diverse. So I can make a Hispanic, a Black, an Asian character and not feel like, it's just a white man that's colored or, it just felt so weird to me.
Because even Dragon Age had 4 voice actors that they had for the game.
Exactly. So the things I would want to change are those. And if I can even add one more thing, I know that this is a big leap because it's always been in the Fallout games, but I wish there wasn't loading screens when going into buildings in the
How
sense of
dare you?
I want to open a
Blasphemy.
door. Blasphemy. I want to open a door and be able to walk through it. And not only do I want that, but I want repercussions. If I shoot at a building, I want it to blast a hole into the building, kind of like in Battlefield.
That's not gonna happen.
It needs to be Fallout in the sense of, yes, things are destroyed, but yes, they can get more destroyed. That's what I want to see more of. And I really, really, really was upset with the fact that you couldn't do a full evil playthrough in Fallout 4 like you could in Fallout 3, where
Yeah.
you could blow up Megaton and then have repercussions from that. You can't necessarily do a bad playthrough in Fallout 4, something me and Spencer have discussed. Either way, you're made out to be the good guy. And
Yeah,
I don't
because
necessarily
even in the
like that.
Raider DLC, it doesn't really, because you would have to contradict all of your progress throughout the whole game just to even play that DLC the way you're supposed to.
Right. It's just weird how they did that. So those are the things I'd want to see changed. And I would also, if and I keep saying that's going to be one more, but this is literally the last one.
We're holding you to it this time.
Hold me to it. If they're going to do settlement building, I firmly believe and wish that did not just stop at the settlements. I want to be able to carry materials on me, like in Fallout 76, throw a workshop and go, you know what? I'm playing on survival. I want to save right now. Let me just throw up a camp, build a little camp in the middle of the waste, because there's certain locations in Fallout that are beautiful. And I would love to go up, on one of those bridges, throw down a camp, save there, eat some food, and call that my home as well. Instead of having to go to specific settlements. I know there was a lot of settlements, but why stop the settlement building in the settlements? Why not make it an open world builder? It would have been,
Well,
to me,
I'm
a
going
lot.
to give Bethesda a little bit of credit here. The fact that that was the first time they ever implemented that into their games. So it wasn't until 76 that we actually started getting more attention to the idea of settlement building as being anywhere. So, I mean, I completely agree with you, Cody. That's something that needs to be in the next Fallout, for sure. But I'm going to give Bethesda a little bit the benefit of the doubt on this one because it was the first time they ever did something like this in their games. Because even when
Right,
Skyrim,
right.
when you're building your home, that was a set thing. You didn't have building privileges like you did in Fallout. And even though they
Yeah.
were extremely limited, like that was the first time Bethesda ever did that. So I
And just
agree.
like you said,
You good? Go.
yeah, just like you said, what I do give them full credit for what they did, because it's very easy to take a game like we're doing and look at what we would do to make it better once it's already created. But I love this topic because I'm hoping that, you know, these things will get out into the open. I want Bethesda and big gaming companies to look at the people that they make the games for, take in their ideas and go, wow, yes, we'll take some of these to make the game even better. Because that's really what gaming companies should be. They're trying to target us, right? Well, they need to take in our opinions and the things that we would love to see and make that happen in the game to make it more community based. That's what I want to see. I feel like it needs to be more community based, and I feel like that's what they were trying to do with 76 was make it more of a community based game. But of course, it had its drawbacks in the beginning. But
You mean the utter failure it had in the beginning?
I was trying not to say that, but yes. Yes.
It was crap show is too polite
It
for
was
what
like No
happened.
Man's Sky. It was, at
It
least they
was
didn't
worse than
make.
No Man's Sky. At least because even at least No Man's Sky you could travel like they promised you could. 76 you couldn't even fight the way they promised that you could. So, but anyways,
True.
that's a whole different tangent for another night. But yeah, that's pretty much what. The only other thing I would add to what we just talked about there is the fact that there needed to be more actual things to build in the settlements when Fallout came out. So in vanilla Fallout, there's nothing that you can build settlements with. Like realistically, there's nothing. And even with the DLCs, it barely gets to acceptable, in my opinion. Bethesda really
Good
needed to
point.
have more building schemes. They really needed to have more um, settler options. Because like it wasn't until I think by the end of Vault 88's DLC that we actually had things that made settlers happy that weren't just resources, or that we had a free range vault to build in. Like this, I again like got to give Bethesda credit for even introducing the idea because no one did it before. But it's one of those things where like I could build out 88 with what Bethesda give me and be done in a day. Build 3 rooms that encompasses all the stuff that they had, and it's just like it's nothing. It's nothing. So they needed to have more variety. They needed to have more things to do in the actual individual settlements because otherwise there's no point in returning back there for the building. It's not until you get into modding that settlements become something that really is worth your time. So that's my major problem with Fallout, in the sense of what they really, really, really should have focused on. Even with Creation Club, what they really should have focused on was give us more building sets, give us more all this kind of stuff, because people love building settlements, and you didn't give them anything to build settlements with.
Right, and I just hate that that mods even have to exist because, in my opinion, I love the achievement aspect, and mods are basically just created to add the things in games that we wish were there. Uh, but thankfully, we do have mods so that, games can be better than they originally are in some aspects. But at the same time, I just never use them. I never do
Well,
because I like to get the achievement aspects. So I just wish that if there, are mods in the future for games, that they would incorporate those into achievements and things that are earnable, because it's just, for me, it defeats the aspect of the game if I can't, get those cool achievements to pop up every now and then. Because I don't even necessarily go for achievements. I just like when they pop up and I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm like, oh wow, cool achievement, you know.
well, the modding community, also it's somewhat helpful too, because with the modding community, the developers also can see what the modders do with the game, can kind of get ideas of what the community is actually looking for based on the kind of mods everybody's actually wanting out in their games. And so they can take those kind of ideas, bounce them into their next one, and kind of improve upon it based on what modders were doing with the game and what everybody was actually going with. Because you look at YouTube, you watch the mods that what people playing with mods are using, what people are actually enjoying out of the modding community, and their next game they can actually take those ideas and try to work them in. Kind of similar to what they were trying to do with the Creation Club, but not just pay the modders for that, but like they could pay them for the ideas, but work that kind of stuff in. Because like one of my favorite mods for settlements was the ability for your settlers to kind of build areas. Like they were
Oh,
able to
sim
build.
settlements.
Yeah, it's similar to that, where you could go. Your settlers are building stuff. So while you're gone and you come back, your settlers have they've built up the farm. You could put down the framework of this is what I want here. If you don't want to take the time to build it up, or you can take the time to improve upon what they've done, or just let them do their thing. Kind of
Now
like
that would have been awesome.
well, like you were talking about the campsites and stuff in 76, being able to put a campsite down and then come back a week later in game time and find that it's become a little shack town. Like there's a small community building off of what you left there just for small supply, and you
Yes,
find out
like,
there's a small little,
yeah,
or it could become a rate, like you find a small raider camp there.
that
You
would
know
be
that
awesome.
that kind of
Like
stuff.
kind of like Route 70 or Route 70 something or 80 something on New Vegas. It was kind of like in the middle of nowhere on a bridge, and it was just kind of like a little shack town. It was fun to go
Yeah,
through.
but modding community is useful for them to be able to improve upon their, because if it's just them doing their ideas and then people just saying, oh, I didn't like this or I like this, then they're kind of stabbing in the dark of, okay, the community like this, so we'll just put it in our next game and do a little bit of tweaks that they think would be useful, as opposed to being able to see what the modding community is. And it's like, oh, people really liked the settlements kind of developing on top of us being able to build it, or they wanted to be able to build in more areas than just in these designated spots. The modding community gave those kind of things out as well. That, from what I've seen on 70, I haven't been able to play 76, but the videos and stuff I've seen, it seems like some of the mods that I was seeing early days of Fallout 4, those are some of the things I'm seeing in 76, like being able to build in more areas than just the designated spots.
Yeah.
Good point.
But it also
And totally
translates to
off
more than
topic.
just the settlements. It translates to the weapons themselves, because one of the big trends that happened in Fallout modding was bringing back weapons that Bethesda left behind in the earlier installments. So things like the service rifle, which was one of the most popular weapons in Fallout New Vegas, that didn't show up in Fallout 4. Why?
Yeah.
Right. That's another thing that we could even add, that, there's a lot of weapons that didn't show up that would have been great. What would have been cool is to see something almost like a ray gun that we had in Call of Duty, because that's definitely, the ray
There
gun looks
is.
like that.
It's the alien blaster.
Yeah. Yeah, the alien blaster, and then
Oh,
being
good
able to
point. Good point.
upgrade it.
But even still, like in Fallout
Point.
3, you had the alien blaster, but you also had the alien blaster rifle. You had the
Yeah,
alien
which
blaster
was only brought in
baton.
from
Like it was more than just that.
the
So
rifle wasn't even brought in until the Creation Club.
And if I can even add,
Or was it?
and maybe you guys will agree,
Okay. Yeah.
why in the world, I know that it seems like the aliens are always bad, always against you in Fallout. When they crashed in Fallout 4, a part of me was hoping that I could befriend them or even get a quest from them. Kind of like in Fallout 3, you have Mothership Zeta. But I don't just want to destroy the aliens. I wish that when they came in the Fallout world, you would be able to befriend them or, do a quest
that's not
line
going to
for
work
them.
with Fallout lore, though. That's the problem.
Oh, I
And
see.
it's supposed to
The-
be based on what is it, the kind of like those old style movies where you had the invaders from space
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Oh, I see.
They were always an enemy. They were never coming to befriend humanity. They were coming to destroy it.
Yeah. Because there was even the long theory for a while that the community had that the aliens were the ones that started the Great War. Now that's kind of been sort of disproven in extent because it seems like Vault-Tec might have been the ones to start the war itself.
It's funny because they ended up getting destroyed in the process of trying to fund themselves like this. But yes.
Yeah. So,
Which,
but
I was sad that Vault-Tec wasn't in charge of the Institute, because I thought that would have been a really cool twist. But anyway,
it would have been definitely thematically consistent with Fallout. So like if it was like an old vault that turned into the Institute, then yes, that would have been very reminiscent of the kind of things that we'd run into Fallout. That's one of the disappointing things about Fallout 4 is that all these connections that you could have made, they didn't even bother to think about. And that's it bothers me because like true fans of Fallout would have done something like that. And it's just like, Bethesda, did you have people who didn't care about the franchise write this story out? Because that's what it seems like to me. Because, and especially in Boston, when you have vaults galore, there wasn't a single vault of actual surviving scientists that decided to turn themselves into the Institute. That was just, for me, it would have been thematically consistent with the rest of the games. Because Vault-Tec's evil.
that's agreed.
Like the people, maybe not people in Vault-Tec are evil, but Vault-Tec as an entity is evil. All right, it's it's the epitome of scientific research done in the worst possible way, and that's what the Institute is. And it would have been really consistent with what Fallout's messaging is, because a lot of people forget that Fallout is just basically an allegory for the toxic parts of civilization. So, and Vault-Tec was the epitome of that with its scientific research and its designs on making humans into guinea pigs. And it's just like, that's the definition of the Institute. And why they decided to make that a separate thing, I don't know. I'm okay with it, but it definitely would have made things a lot more interesting or a lot more consistent with the lore if they had that. And to go back to the aliens, the reason why you can't befriend the aliens is because the aliens are the enemy of mankind in space. You can't befriend them. That was the whole point of Mothership Zeta, was that it was exploring the aliens as an antagonist in the story. So I'm most assuredly they'll pop up again in another Fallout sequel, but I don't know if they'll ever have that same showcasing that they did in Fallout 3. I want them to. Like, I would like it to have like a Brotherhood of Steel engagement with the Zetan aliens. That would be a very, very interesting war, in my opinion. Because other than the Enclave, the Brotherhood is the most advanced faction in all of the world, supposedly.
Agreed. And Eric, I actually completely off topic, but I actually found a Logitech piece that was in the back of the tower that you gave me, and it looks like it's to a Logitech mouse. So I'm not sure if
Oh,
you need that
really?
back. Yeah, that may have been why your mouse is messing up. I don't know.
No.
It wouldn't be
Mine's
working
wired.
flat out.
Yeah, mine's wired that I have. It's yeah, that one's different. I think I know the one that you're talking about. But I thought I stripped everything in the back there, but okay. But yeah, just hold on to it. I'll be there at some point. Thanks though.
Yeah.
So it might be an unpopular opinion on the weapons, but why'd they take away decay on weapons? Like your weapon degradation. Like
I don't know why.
Because
I
I enjoy
I
that.
like I like the idea of you having a weapon and you actually having to maintain, because you're in the wasteland. It doesn't make sense for your weapon to stay pristine all the time, especially if
Right.
you're not perked into, like, I understand if you had gun nut and that like slowed down the degradation, but I would if you're modding your weapon and changing it stuff, you would think that you would go there and kind of fix it up a little bit. I understand they're probably going on the same idea that they went with Skyrim, because I think they dropped degradation in Elder Scrolls in that same time frame, but it it doesn't make sense for your weapon to stay pristine all the time. Like your
Agreed,
gun
especially.
jamming,
Yeah.
if you're in the middle of a heavy gunfight and you haven't done anything with your weapon, your gun jamming up could kind of give you that aspect of you know you're it kind of gives more of an interesting story. Your gun jamming up, and then you having to find a makeshift weapon, like, or a crowbar or a pipe wrench, because you have a good stash of ammo, but you have no weapon that can use it because the one gun you had on you for that ammo has been shot. So now you have to take down the raider, take his pipe weapon, then you can actually start putting your ammo in that. But it's not the greatest. So you're like jumping from weapon to weapon, as opposed to you
Yes.
sticking with that pristine weapon that you've modded up completely and never have to worry about any kind of damage on it. I'm not saying your weapon should break down where you now have built this massive weapon and it no longer can be fixed whatsoever. Like I think I don't know if Fallout had the where you can only no, I'm thinking of Dying Light and stuff, where they had you could fix it like 3 times and then it's done. Not saying anything like that, but having like a percentage, like it after a certain while it'll start misfiring and it jams up. You have to get it to go, and then eventually it gums up to the point where you can't do anything and you have to repair it in order to actually get it into a working condition. And the better your gun nut or whatever perk they want to use kind of gives you more of an ability to clean up and maintain your weapon in a better aspect.
That would have been awesome. And I really wish that you were on the Bethesda team with that idea because, you see the blood and you see the dirt on the weapons when you're playing. But with that dirt and blood should come, I even think it'd be cool not to just, like you said, but, repair the weapons, but have to even clean them. I mean,
Yeah.
it would have been so cool. And what's made me kind of sad is that you couldn't even grab any of the classic muskets that you saw in the museum. I know that they were
Yeah.
probably just fakes, but come on, man, it would have been really cool to have like a classic musket and then be able to fill it with BBs like they had the cannons and clean it.
Think
It would
about
have
it.
been super.
Shoving a fistful of bottle caps down it, throwing some gunpowder, packing it down, and blasting those out. You
Ooh,
lose like 10 caps and blow a hole in the raider in front of you.
that would have been
Again, let's try to
really
give
cool.
Bethesda a little bit benefit of the doubt, because
Yeah.
that's mechanics that do take time to
Yeah.
develop.
I understand, but they had it in was it New Vegas that had degradation, or was it 3?
It was New Vegas, and
Yeah.
I it was New Vegas, but I think the only thing that 3 lacked that the others didn't have, or that the others had, was achievements. That's something I noticed, but I don't think they had weapon breakdowns in that. I wish they would have. That would have made it more interesting because, like you said, it's just really cool to be in battle, and then you're role playing, and you're like taking these people out, and then your gun jams, and you're like, oh crap! Now I have to think of another way to do combat. Maybe I have to switch to a melee weapon, take this close raider out next to me, pick his gun up, and then go from there. Because it not only makes it more realistic, but it makes it you have to adapt. And I love being able to adapt in a video game because that's what we do in real life. I mean,
Well, it's just that role playing aspect. It gives you more of the feel of the environment. But even doing something simple as just accuracy lowering as it gets worse. Like even if they,
that would be awesome.
where if it hits the bottom, it just, the gun clicks. Doesn't have to put any special
Yes.
animation. It won't fire once it goes to the bottom. But if you're like halfway, your shot's not going to be as accurate. And if you look down the VATS, instead of having 100% chance of a chest shot 5 feet in front of you, it says 50. Something as simple as that could have been implemented. That I don't know how much time it would have taken, but
Now
things
they
like
did
that.
yeah.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say they did a good job with the weapon, the junk jet, but the only thing I didn't like about using it is if you guys sound like you're a lot like me, and even Eric would agree with this, is I know he likes to build. The thing that sucked about the junk jet is I never wanted to use it because I wanted to use all my junk for settlement building and also weapon crafting. And so using the junk jet to me felt counterproductive in that sense. Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I did like what they did with the customization, being able to take a simple pipe pistol and being able to customize it to something actually useful was nice. Like that was actually cool to be able to put perks into Gun Nut and the others to be able to build up a functional weapon and actually feel accomplished with a weapon that you've crafted to be what you want, and being able to find a pipe pistol that has a silencer on it and being able to take that and put it on your weapon and being able to take the parts off of various weapons that you find and
Yeah.
combining them into your gun.
That was the good mechanic about the crafting system in Fallout, which I don't really have too many criticisms about. They did a really good job on at least the system of crafting.
Yeah.
They just needed to do more on it. But I hope I don't ruin this for you guys, but my main problem with the guns in Fallout is that they're actually really unrealistic, because next time you play Fallout, just take a look about which side you have to use the bolt action on the receiver, and then let me know whether that's right or not.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You didn't ruin it, but it definitely, I agree. I mean, the crank weapon, the crank laser musket, I thought was my favorite weapon just because I loved cranking. But other than that.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's the one you're. Wait, say it again one more time.
Look at the receiver of the hunting rifle, which is the same as a lot of other receivers of guns in Fallout 4, and then tell me whether you're right-handed or left-handed with that gun.
Oh God.
The receiver, you don't a real weapon, you don't bolt action with your left hand. You bolt action with the hand that you use to fire the gun with.
That's a good observation.
No, it's not. It was plain as day. There's a mod even to fix it. Because here's the thing, Bethesda did this correctly in all the other Fallouts. For some reason in Fallout 4 they decided that, you know what? All the receivers are going to be left-handed receivers. And I'm thinking to myself, what?
And why couldn't you change? I thought it would have been really cool to be able to change your character to a left-handed character.
That
if you
is a
want
game
fire.
mechanic. That's not something I'm going to blame Bethesda about. No game in the world does that.
Not blaming. but it would be cool if there was a way to switch it left and right. Like say I want to play a left-handed character. I don't know. It'd just be kind of cool. Even a fighting stance, it'd be cool to switch left and right, like how they do
I mean,
in
you're not
fighters.
wrong, but think about this: the controller's not designed for left-handed people either.
Good point.
So, because left-handed people are actually so rare that to design that kind of controller and that game mechanic. Now, in the game, I think you should have the option, at least on an aesthetic level, to do that. But the reality is that I think it's let me search it real quick. The amount of people who are actually left-handed is extremely low.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I do have to say it does throw me off with like bows and stuff when you get those in games, because I actually shoot bow left-handed as well as slingshot, and that throws me off a little bit when I look at the, like in Skyrim when you're shooting the bow when it's right-handed.
Yeah,
good point.
because only around
Also,
roughly 12% of the world population is left-handed.
trying to make Fallout more diverse. Why isn't there any disabled NPCs mentally or physically? Or
Have you
why
seen the
can't
super
you?
mutants?
Well, the super mutants, yes, I do get that, but I'm talking about, why can't you make your character autistic or have a
All right,
disability
Cody,
or
ask that question again and then really think about this.
no, but I mean, people, there are people in this
Well,
world that are born with disabilities. Why can't we add that incorporated into
Because
games?
it has less to do with inclusivity and more to do with you can't actually role play with that.
in
But
the older Fallout, so that you did, if you had a lower intelligence score, you did have some speech prompts that were kind of dumb, and also in the charisma, in in charisma you actually have a stat called idiot savant, which you can, if you
But
have the lower your intelligence stat, the higher of a chance of getting a
but
experience
that's
boost on doing stuff.
here's the thing, and this
But
is
see,
why
what
you
if you
have it.
started off as a smart, because a lot of autistic people that I know are highly intelligent. You could start off as an autistic character and not even need to up your intelligence because it would be through the
It's
roof.
not about that though. You would have
Yeah,
to change the mechanics of role playing so much to accommodate for disabilities
yeah.
like that you'd be so focusing your assets on doing that instead of actually just making a good role playing game. So take for instance,
Yeah.
like let's take something like it what's a good example of this? So let's say you're disabled and you're in a wheelchair. Okay,
Yeah.
suddenly you can't sprint anymore.
You can't sprint, you can't climb the ladders, you can't
I
swim,
get
like
that, but it
swimming,
would
all that
be
kind of stuff.
All right,
badass to
but
have
that's
a
just physical
wheelchair
disabilities.
character.
Let's talk about actual
But
like
but think
mental
about
disabilities in games. All
but
right, you can't.
think about Fallout as if you are handicapped and you're in a wheelchair, you could have like a futuristic one that like flies around. I mean, I think that would be so fucking
How would
cool,
you
like
enter buildings?
a war veteran. I don't know. I
Well,
And
mean,
but that's ultimately what I'm getting at, Cody. It's not that I'm
I
saying
get you. I
you
get you.
can't have inclusivity. What I'm saying is it can't be the main character.
Oh no,
yeah.
I know you're not saying that it can't be the
At the
or
same time,
inclusivity, but it would just be cool to have that option to, I want to be someone, in a wheelchair and have the challenges of that in the Fallout or have the advantages of that in the Fallout
It would
game. I
just be
mean, I know it would be,
disadvantage. There are no advantages to being in a
well,
wheelchair.
at the
but the
same
thing
time,
is there could be if you could customize the wheelchair, right? Like make it, upgrade it and make it like a mech. I don't know. I'm getting a little too crazy with
Yes, you
this
are.
subject, but
yeah,
I think it'd be cool.
Because in that, but here's the thing, that's just physical disabilities. Let's talk about mental disabilities. Okay, what community are you going to want to piss off the most by ignoring them on the game mechanics? Number
yeah.
one. Number
I
two,
get it.
let's just take like something even simple as a lisp. How are you going to replicate that in game? Because dialogue works the same way regardless whether you have a lisp or not.
Yeah.
Right,
So
right. But
I get where you're coming
but
from,
people
Cody.
with a lot of people with the disabilities in this day and age, even find the humor in the disability themselves, and you see them making fun of themselves or like throwing jabs at themselves or their disability. And I think that's beautiful that we can all find the humor even in things that might be like that. But I know that not everyone does find the humor. Not every disabled person would find the humor in it. So
Well,
we currently live in
that's not
in an
disabled
era
people. I would be
where,
worried about that. It would be
Oh,
more of activist. But it's one of those things where
oh, I see.
it's
well,
we're
one thing
getting
that
to a part of this sort of hypothetical where
yeah,
it is impossible to do that. And the
and
reason why
Right.
is because in order to make a game that's going to appeal for the majority of the people to buy it, you need to have it be able to be playable for the majority of the people who buy it. And the moment
and
Right.
you
So
start
then we
adding
would
more
have
and
to
more
go.
disability mechanics, you're taking away from the core of the game, number one, but also number two, it would just be better to just make a game about disability at that point, because then you can actually focus on it
yeah,
properly instead of using it as a
Good
gimmick
point.
for a game that people are going to take offense to either way. Because even though disabled people might be able to laugh it off, people who aren't and don't get comedy, Cody,
yeah,
remember Dave Chappelle's trying to be they're trying to cancel Dave Chappelle right now. All right, so that's the era we live in here.
See, that's disgusting to me because the thing is that, you know, if it just doesn't make sense because humor is such a necessity when it comes to living in the world that we do. To not have a sense of humor, not only do I look at you as less intelligent as the majority of the population, but I also look at you as not being able to enjoy life as much as the rest of the population because humor is beautiful. But I do completely understand where you're coming from. But when it comes to having disabilities, I would like to see
yeah.
NPCs, like a guy that was in the Brotherhood that got, his leg blown off, but has a prosthetic leg that,
They had it. It
and
was
he's,
Ingram, Proctor
Yeah,
Ingram. Her
oh,
legs are
that's a
blown
good
off, and
point.
she was in a power armor suit
yeah,
in order to stand.
and
Right.
also
Okay. Yeah.
So,
you got to
like,
I forgot about
remember,
her.
and that's why I'm saying, like, inclusivity as far as characters is very easy, but inclusivity as the main character is not, because you have to design this for the
Good point.
majority of people, and that
yeah.
is a technical impossibility.
Well,
Good
that's
point.
one point I've been trying to bring up is the difference between a tabletop RPG and a video games RPG is no
Yes.
matter what, there's always a basis to what the concept of the character is. It's never 100% blank slate. You're always something. There's always some type of basis that they give you. So unless that basis is a specific disability, there's not really a way to add it. Like I'm trying to give any, but like
This
you
was not the
how
topic I thought we were going to be on tonight, by the way.
um
No, I know. Something that it would be kind of cool to see more of in the game because
yeah,
Fallout is a destructive world. I want to
yeah.
see people that have more legs blown
Yeah.
off, people that are handicapped that kind of fit the aesthetic of Fallout itself.
Well, you also got to think in the wasteland, those kind of people don't last very long. This
Unless
is a
they're
That's
in,
kind of
true.
a
unless they're at a
very
settlement, because
yeah,
that's the saying, like, there are disabled people in Fallout. It's
yeah,
they're just in the settlements area where they're actually
yeah,
protected from the things of the wasteland. So that's where you would have stuff like that. So,
yeah,
like, if you had a city like Diamond City, you would actually be seeing more wounded people there, or you should have been seeing more wounded people there, more
yeah,
people who might be weak on a physical level but have some sort of value to
yeah,
civilization. Because even in the modern day, like, even people who have mental disabilities and can't really use technology the same way as us, and it's becoming more and more of a problem lately because technology is sort of superseding labor.
yeah.
But you
Uh,
still need to find a purpose for people regardless of situation. Otherwise, they can't be productive and happy on their own level.
Good
and
point.
I'm not gonna put that against Bethesda because at this time when they were making Fallout 4, I know Xbox One and PS4 were a good system, but they also had to prioritize us not essential NPCs, but NPCs that were more more active roles than the filler roles.
Yeah.
And so if they were on top end PCs and it was built for top end PCs that could handle a heavy load, we'd see a more bustling Diamond City with more disabilities, more. You'd see the drunks sitting on the side. You'd see the more of the homeless. You'd see more of the little small shanty towns on the outskirts of it. But it's more desolate because of the load that it was putting on systems at the
Good
time.
point.
So
Yeah.
And that's
they wouldn't
something
be
that
able to fill that in.
I want to see us get away from. We've had this talk before. Why not have, and I know why, but I wish we could have everything on just one system. You know, what they sell consoles, right? What if we got rid of consoles and they started selling new PC towers and then putting every game on that so that we don't have these exclusive issues and we don't have this battle for consoles.
Well,
You know, and
Monopoly
I
is
know
number
that it's a
one,
money thing.
but
Well, yeah, of course, Monopoly and getting money. But I'm just saying, in a perfect world, it would be beautiful to just sell one piece of technology and say you can play every game on here.
no,
It would just be
what would be more beautiful is what they're trying to do, which is actually having cross-play, so that
Yeah.
you can actually have the system you want and the freedom to play with your friends at the same time. We're getting to that
Yeah,
point. But
because
well, maybe even
Yeah.
take away the system and have just like controllers from the past systems that you can still have that connection to the system with.
well,
Almost.
here's the problem. You're thinking the system. You're not thinking the individual game. So here's the reason why Fallout is so desolate is because they try to focus on graphics instead of art style, which is what prevents you from having more PCs in the actual game. That has nothing to do with the system itself necessarily. It has everything to do with game design.
because
Because
at
think
the
about this,
time people
like,
were looking for more realistic graphics.
yeah,
that time,
but
right?
realistic graphics
Right.
can only go so far where people actually care about it. So take for instance like something like Assassin's Creed. There are 1,000 NPCs on that screen. Why couldn't Fallout do that? It's because they prioritize
point.
different things. It has nothing to do with
Yeah.
the systems. It has everything to do with game design.
Yeah.
Because I can
Well-
download a modern day. I can download Assassin's Creed Odyssey on PS4 and has more NPCs than Fallout did, and the graphics are a lot more intense. All right, so
I
what
know
did
that we
Bethesda
have a-
prioritize? They prioritized different things.
I know that we haven't. I really want to hear Mike's side of like what we could add to Fallout, and I also want to hear Eric's side to after hearing us all talk about this, like what he would. I know you said it'd be a different video, but I'm really interested to know, you know, what Eric would add into a Fallout game or an RPG game that would make it more attractive to him to play, more alluring.
That
for him.
might be a part two, because honestly, we're already doing a normal video when we already thought we were doing a short one. So
Yeah.
Right. Don't
Okay.
worry about me. I'm going through summary videos right now for this
Okay.
this class, so it's all good
But
stuff I've
I've-
seen.
I've checked off a couple of things on my list, but I actually had a page of random little tidbits. I've been able to fill in a couple of them on this doc.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've got a couple more. I made some notes for this one this time.
okay.
So
Then
Well,
I would
Eric,
just say just go
you
down
don't
the
get to
list
my
and we can
points, I
talk
still
to Eric about what his thoughts are on it later on. Because Eric doesn't play
sorry.
these kinds of games as much as we do. So it's just one of those things where like
Yeah.
when he has more time to think about it, I think would probably work best because then he actually has he can articulate what he wants to see.
Yeah.
Good point.
Because I don't.
But I mean,
Eric,
he
are
do-
you even still here?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I am. I'm
Did,
just.
did we just wake
You
you
were
up?
cutting out, and I did. No, I've been like halfway paying attention because you guys were just talking. It's not my field.
Yeah. So like I
or-
think
But what
I
is
think
your
it's been-
field? What
These
is your field
simulators
is
and
more of the
that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean-
simulators, and also, but he's also been playing Among Trees, which is sort of an RPG in a way. You role play to survive, and I could even see them, Eric. I could see them incorporating some of the aspects of Among Trees into Fallout, in the survival sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, from what little I've played, because Spence knows this, because I was excited for 76 because that was really the big one. I started with 4 and I kind of just I don't know. I gave up on it, and then I found 76 was coming out, and I just started doing that. And he was like, "Well, that was the wrong thing to do. Should have stayed with 4 because,
Well, the right thing
everybody
to do
said
was to
76
play
was."
Fallout New Vegas,
Yeah.
because that is
Well,
the
I
gold
played
standard
that.
of
I played
Fallout.
part of that too. Yeah, I mean, I played part. I didn't play a lot of it, but I've had some experience with it. Um, but at least with 76, I was just interested in just the whole, I guess, the different things that you could cook and the different things that you could find and craft, and I don't know. That's really the biggest thing
Well,
that I kind
now
of
that we
enjoyed
all have
about it,
PCs,
and
we can
just
do that again. Like, we can reintroduce you to Fallout 76 proper now, because it's much better than what it was on release. Now, granted, it's still not what it needs to be, in my
Right.
opinion, but like, now that we're all on PCs now, we could do that and get you reacquainted with the game.
right.
Assuming we have time,
Yeah, I mean,
because we're all busy.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's just from what I saw of it. I mean, I played that more than a lot of other things when it really came out, and I just kept on playing that. But
Well,
it's
you were
been
also
so
still
long since I've done it.
fanboy
So
on Zero Dawn, so.
well, yeah,
One,
and that's the thing I'm downloading now for PC. I just found it
Oh
on
my
Steam
gosh.
for the first time.
How did I
Yeah,
guess this?
I didn't even I didn't even know. I didn't even know it was like it's. They said it was coming to it, but I saw it on my suggestions. I'm like, okay, I'm buying this thing. So I've been
Okay.
downloading it for the past hour.
All right. That
beautiful. I do have to say, we missed one important thing, and it's something that me and Mike have talked about extensively. Also, um, maybe we talked about in this group. One thing that we would all enjoy seeing, besides Fallout 76, is I would have really enjoyed just seeing the co-op of Fallout 4, even to be able to be with, because when Fallout 4 was originally coming out, I was hoping that you would be able to make specials with a friend in the same aspect that you do in Fallout 4, and just go together through that. And I know we talk about our issues with it, but
was a
if it's
long
implemented
conversation
correct,
too, so it's not just like a couple things.
yeah,
Like there's a lot
no,
of.
it's not. But co-op would have been really fun, just to be able to be with your friend, kind of almost like in an MMO style, but not really MMO. It would have to be a completely new concept that's crafted and
Well,
something that
you
we could
have that in
even.
76 now with the
Yeah.
whole private worlds thing. So, for
Yeah.
instance, like
Oh,
I could
right,
buy a private world,
right.
and you guys can game with me, and we all just play in our own version of 76.
This
Yeah.
is why we re-download.
Well, it also costs
So
$100, so I'm not sure you really want to devote time to
What?
this.
Well,
So
They're
it's
not charging
$12.99. It's
$100.
$12.99 a month or
it's a
$100 for the year.
subscription service. So either
Yeah.
you
You're
cough up
kidding
a lot
me.
of money in the
No.
beginning, or you cough up a
So
decent
they
amount of money every
screw.
week.
well, they would do that.
This is modern
They gotta make
gaming.
some of the
No,
revenue stream.
It's an
no way.
MMORPG. That's what they do. That's what they did in ESO. It's a similar concept.
So
You can pay
they're
for
gonna
that subscription.
release a shitty version of that game, and then they're gonna make us pay for it. That's so that's so asinine of them to do.
Well,
They release a broken game and then go, you know what? We fixed this game, but now you guys have to pay $100. That's so
well,
No,
stupid.
you don't have to pay $100 to play it. You have to pay $100 for the Fallout
Yeah, to
First,
host
which
it.
allows you to have the private world.
But
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I
Well,
mean, they should have done this from the beginning and not charged us
You're
again just
right.
to add more features to the game. That now Bethesda and Tom, whatever the hell his name is, are out for money grabs.
Todd
They're not even
Howard.
the same.
yeah.
Tom Howard, Tom, whoever gives a fuck. They're not even out for. Excuse me, sorry, Tom Howard. I don't care if you hear this though, but they're not even going after what they used to, which is building a game that we love. They're out as the same as all the battle royale games out there. It's a cash money grab, and it makes me, quite frankly, makes me
At the
pretty sick
Well,
because I never
76
thought
counts as a
Bethesda
battle
would.
royale now too. So
Also,
I never thought
76
they would
is
go to that.
I
it's also free
I
on
I
Game Pass, so everybody can play free if you have Game Pass. and it's an X. Bethesda is owned by Xbox, so it's one of those.
Well, now they are.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, I
great.
didn't know
That was actually one of the
Yeah.
problems with Bethesda. The reason why they were doing all those money grabbing schemes was because they were going through some financial things on their own end. So now that they're owned by Xbox, hopefully the need for money has sort of decreased because now they actually have a sponsorships, quote unquote, with Microsoft.
So they can build the good quality games that they were known for that got them the kind of notice what made them their.
Notoriety.
You know the words I'm looking for.
Well, it's more
Yeah,
of
I
a
got
now that
that.
they know they have job security.
Yeah,
Maybe now they'll actually take their time. But
they can get out of
Yeah,
panic mode and get back into creativity.
yeah,
Yeah, they have funding now, so
Yeah,
yeah. So,
but
but we'll have to. I would say we'll have to continue this conversation into the next video
yeah,
because it's getting kind of late now. We thought we were going to be doing a short one tonight anyway. So I would just
an hour and a
say,
half into it, I think.
yeah. So I think
yeah.
probably we'll pause this for tonight and pick it back up on our next video.
All right.
So till then, hope everyone has a good rest of the night. We will see you all again soon. We post our videos every Saturday at noon. And if you guys want to give us any topic suggestions, just shoot them in the comments. We'll see what we can do. And till next time, peace. Everybody say bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you for watching our podcast. We do appreciate it. We will try to be uploading our podcast videos every Saturday. If you guys want to catch us when we do our podcast live, feel free to follow us on Twitch. The link will be in the description below, along with all of our other links to our personal channels. And in the meantime, I wish you all a wonderful, blessed rest of the night, and I will see you all again soon. Peace.